behalf of Face2Face Africa, I just wanted to welcome you all to the Pan-African Weekend. And it is always such a privilege to welcome you guys to the Pan-African Weekend, and particularly the Women Forum, which is here today. Women who I deeply respect, not just because of their phenomenal accomplishments, but also because of their passion for empowering women and ensuring that the next generation have something concrete to build upon. It's truly incredible, and some of them traveled very far to be with us today. So to all of our speakers, I just want to say a big thank you, and we are so thrilled that you made time to be a part of this very important conversation about how women are changing the Pan-African narrative. So thank you. So the Pan-African Weekend is unique in that it is the largest conference in the nation that truly seeks to connect, highlight, and celebrate the African diaspora community. At Face2Face Africa, we strive every day to make sure that as Africans, Black immigrants, or people of African descent, our voices are heard, and that our contributions to society in the areas of business, innovation, leadership, culture, and others are recognized and celebrated. We have an action-packed four-day event planned to highlight just that, the best in our community, and to celebrate our impact, starting with tonight. Tomorrow, we have a networking mixer for professionals. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, we want you to come out, meet new people, network, and build meaningful connections. And on Saturday is our awards gala, the Face List, where we will be honoring pioneers in our community in style and elegance. And then finally, we close out the weekend with the Ankara Jazz Brunch on Sunday, where you can enjoy live music and great food and networking. You can find more information about all these events in the program brochure or on panafricanweekend.com and sign up if you haven't already done so. Now, it truly takes a village to plan and produce a conference like the Pan-African Weekend. And I want to acknowledge and thank our sponsors and partners for all their support this weekend, including Prudential Financial, Panagenius, Babu Global, BronzeNet TV, and Women Work. Now, to take over for the rest of this evening, we have a very dynamic woman who we are truly excited to have as our moderator. She is a journalist, a thought leader, and a brave voice for feminine power. A Yale University graduate, she's the founder of Women Love Power, a digital education platform that promotes the unique ways women acquire and wield their power. So please join me, my job here is done, so join me in welcoming to the stage Miss Aisha Faines.
Oh, we are so tired from work, yes. Well, it's going to be a really great event. I'm so honored to be here to kick off this weekend. I have met some dynamic, powerful, brilliant women backstage. The conversation in the green room was enough, so if any indication, this is going to be a wonderful conversation setting the tone for the weekend. We're going to talk about identity, we're going to talk about the narrative, we're going to talk about business, we're going to talk about relationships, work-life balance, and of course, we're going to take some questions from the audience. I want to jump right in because I want to spend as much time as I can in this conversation. So I would like to welcome our first panelist. Her name is Dr. Gina Page. Dr. Gina Page is the co-founder and president of African Ancestry, Inc. It's a groundbreaking company she started in 2003 with a new way of tracing African lineages using genetics. Gina travels the world helping people demystify their roots and inform on identities so that they can better understand who they are by knowing where they are from. From a lineage of entrepreneurs, Page launched her first business at 8 with a magazine purpose to raise money for family trips. She went on to start Pick a Pack care packages as a Stanford University graduate, helping families stay connected with their children while away at school. Prior to forming AfricanAncestry.com, Page was a founder and president of GPG Strategic Marketing Resources. Let's welcome Dr. Gina Page. Our next panelist is Chinwe Esemai. Chinwe Chinwe is an award-winning lawyer, author, and speaker who is passionate about inspiring generations of immigrant women leaders. She's Managing Director and Chief Anti-Bribery Officer at Citigroup, and she holds the distinction of being the first and only person to ever hold that title at Citi. In this role, she oversees Citi's global anti-bribery program, which develops and maintains an enterprise-wide framework for compliance with anti-bribery laws and regulations set out by the US, UK, and over 160 countries. Her role covers all of Citi's lines of businesses and over 200,000 employees worldwide. Join me in welcoming Ms. Chinwe Esma. Our third panelist is Sophie Chadauka. Sophie is global COO of Morgan Stanley's shared services and baking operation. She spent 4 years as head of group treasury at Virgin Money Lending, execution of corporate finance activity in excess of 13 billion pounds, including the company's flotation in 2014. She's a recipient of many industry awards. She's been featured as a business leader in Financial Times and the Sunday Times in the UK. She's ambassador of the 30% Club and co-founder of the Black British Business Awards. She was born and raised in Zimbabwe and has studied and worked in Zimbabwe, America, Britain, and Canada. Join me in welcoming and last, but certainly not least, we're going to bring in some STEM, Mary Spio. She is a deep space engineer who is currently the founder and CEO of Seek Virtual Reality, Inc. Spio has served in the Air Force and also created technologies and content for global titans such as Microsoft Xbox, Boeing, Universal Music, Tribune News, and Clear Channel. Spio executive produced Dystopia's virtual reality component, the original immersive companion to the 2017 Grammy Award-winning album. She holds several patents in real-time streaming and virtual reality technologies, and she's the author of It's Not Rocket Science, 7 Game-Changing Traits for Achieving Uncommon Success, in which she shares inspirational stories to spur us out of our comfort zones. And she's been featured in Fortune, Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Rolling Stone, Billboard, and many more. Today, she is featured right here on the stage. Join us, Mary Spio, and welcome. Okay, so let's get started. So you heard all of those fabulous biographies, but I want you to just open up this conversation with a description of yourself in 3 words. 3 words you would use to describe yourselves. So let's start right here.
Change maker, team captain, freedom fighter.
Yes.
My 3 words are organic, conscious, pioneer.
Yes.
My 3 words, passionate, trailblazer, mission driven.
My 3 words are innovator. I was going to say trailblazer, but since you heard that, I'll say game changing and humanitarian.
Let me start off. I'm going to ask this to the entire panel, but I guess it's just switch it up. We'll start with Dr. Page. We're here talking about, as Pan-African women representing the diaspora, and things are changing. And so I don't want to give you too much structure for this question, but I want to say, when I say changing narrative, what does that mean to you? How is the narrative of women in the diaspora changing? And where do you see yourself in that changing narrative? I mean, I feel like that actually is really relevant for you. I feel like you're literally playing a role in changing the narrative for African Americans.
Yeah, when I think about that, for me, it's understanding who you are and knowing your history. And when you know who you are, you know your history, then you understand that as a black woman and as black women, we have everything we need. We have absolutely everything we need. We created all of this. And so we get to make the narrative whatever we want it to be. And my role in that is helping black people understand who they are.
I just heard the statistic. 80% of partners at law firms in the US are male. Of that 80%, 99% are white male. So if you think about that, a lot of people coming into these industries, we thought we needed to be the same as everyone else. So starting out as lawyers, this wasn't the case when I started, but the attorneys who were partners when I started, they said as women, they all needed to wear shirts and bow ties and regular ties, like men's ties. And so I think when I think of changing the narrative is the fact that we can bring who we are to those industries. We respect the industries, we figure out excellence in those industries, but we bring our full selves, who we really are, and we are part of the conversation, and we sort of infuse the conversation with our unique elements, our unique opinions, and our unique stories.
Narrative, I think about changing a lot of the perspective that people have today. So for example, when you think of Africa, a lot of people think, slavery, a lot of negativity, poverty, and so on and so forth. And there was a quote that I heard somewhere where it talked about the fact that they did not take slaves out of Africa. They took doctors, they took lawyers, they took engineers. So by being ourselves, by being engineers, by being doctors, and so on and so forth, we changed that narrative. And in terms of diversity, we're also bringing perspectives that don't exist. For example, I created several technologies for live streaming over satellite that were acquired by the Boeing company. The technology has been used by Lucasfilms, and it actually changed the entire movie industry. Because I came with a perspective that was different, right? Speaking about having the sameness around the table. Another quote which says, talent hits a target that no one else hits, but genius sees the connection that nobody else sees. And so a lot of our opinions that have not been represented are things that are just simply who we are, but are really needed at these boardrooms that are all white males, that are all seeing the same thing. And so to me, changing the narrative is about making those contributions, because no one would think that, an African child like myself would change the entire movie industry with, this type of technology.
Yes.
Being relevant, being visible. If you open the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal on any given day, you wouldn't know that we exist, and you wouldn't know that we exist in great numbers. And so I'm here to encourage us as a people to do more, to be in those rooms where stories are being told, because we've got to tell our own story. And seeing is believing. We've heard the fine institutions that these women have graduated from. We have incredibly talented people all over the world. But why are we not the captains of industry? There's no reason why we should not be the captains of industry. But there's something that's telling our young people that you don't qualify, and as a result, they disqualify themselves. So we need to be present. We need to encourage those middle managers to remember that they remain relevant and they can make it, and we need each other in order to do that. So for me, the narrative is about telling your own story, understanding your own relevance, and being visible.
Yes.
In places that are.
Visibility. How does one make themselves visible? I mean, if you look at Ava DuVernay as an example of pioneering in terms of telling your story and fighting to get to the place where you have the power to do so, that's on a global scale. But how does someone sitting on this panel make themselves visible?
Look, Sandra, the work that you're doing here today, right, is testament to the fact that there's a forum where we can all tell our stories. I would like to get to a place where we're not just telling our stories to one another,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But we have worked with the necessary distribution channels in order for this to be visible in China today. And for us to be, I guess, commanding a wider, inclusive audience that understands that it's not just for us, by us, but in fact for the world to receive.
Absolutely.
So it's really, can we do something to elevate what we're doing today and make it even more visible?
Acquired by Apple, and the day it was acquired.
I grew up with him.
Yeah, I did not see that story, exactly. I didn't see that story anywhere. I posted it on my Facebook, and a lot of people also started sharing it. But to this day, a lot of people are waiting for that black unicorn in Silicon Valley because they don't even know that we already have multiple people that have already done that. So we definitely tell our stories, and what every single person is doing here is so important with your phones up. That's how we start the cycle going.
Agreed. Dr. Page, this next question is actually for you. I actually want to progress this conversation into these journeys, how you get to where you are. And I'm sure that's a question on everyone's mind. For you, I mean, you've created a very specific platform, a very specific way that people of African descent can trace their ancestry. I would like to know your vision in creating AfricanAncestry.com, what makes it different, and also a little bit about your background and how finding your own ancestries has impacted your life.
So African Ancestry actually was the dream of my business partner. My business partner is an African American geneticist, Dr. Rick Kittles, and he created the idea of African Ancestry. I helped make his dream come true. And it was actually kind of easy in a sense as far as starting a business goes, because when the community found out that he was able to take their DNA and tell them where they were from, he got inundated with requests. So I didn't have to do any market research. I didn't have to prove the concept. I was like, yeah, there's a demand. I got a degree in economics. We have a supply. Let's put it together. But for me, the approach was really a business one. I wasn't sitting around wondering where am I from and pining over the answer and how to bring that to market. I saw an opportunity to use my strengths and talents that I had developed in corporate America to bring a product to market that has never existed before, ever in life, and make it for the benefit of people that I'm passionate about. That was my approach. Our mission is to transform the way we view ourselves as Black people and the way we view Africa. Now, the vision for the company has changed because we came into this wanting Black people to know where we come from so we know our roots. Because a tree without roots can't stand. And we're out here moving with the whim of what happens to us in society because we're not rooted. Everybody else up here is rooted, but people who were born here are not rooted. And so that's how we started. But we also knew, and what we know, is that in addition to needing some psychological wellness assistance, we have to work on our physical wellness too. And personalized medicine is here. It's happening whether we participate or not. And so after being in this business for 16 years and establishing and building the trust and credibility of Black people, because we have not sold, shared, or researched our customers' DNA, unlike our competition, we now are looking at how can we use DNA to help our community live better physically. And so that's my vision. I really stumbled into this, but I've always wanted to work for myself, and I love Black people. So I am now in what I've coined the business of being Black, and I'm very happy with that.
Yes. I have a couple of follow-up questions for you. Two. One is that, in a lot of the medical trials and studies, people of African descent are underrepresented. So what ends up happening is, for example, for some time there was medicine that was for hepatitis, but it didn't really work on people. It didn't work on people of African descent. because they weren't really represented in the child studies at London, and there are differences. Do you see that as one of the directions that you take in your company to really make sure that some of the elements that really play people of African descent get the medicine that's required, the cures that are required?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't have personalized medicine because we don't participate in the research.
Yeah.
But we don't participate in research because of the history.
Yeah, we don't trust. Yeah.
So that's why it's been very important for us to change the narrative.
Yes. Yes.
And build ourselves up as a place where our people believe that and trust that we will handle your genetic material ethically and morally, and to be transparent about how we use it, and to develop a model so that it's a win-win-win. By Dr. Joy DeGruy.
Yes.
And she makes it very clear how our behaviors today are what she calls maladaptive because of the history of systemic and structural racism that is a direct outcome of slavery. And by maladaptive, I mean we don't have self-esteem, we don't like ourselves, we don't like black people, we don't want to be African. All of that is part of our maladaptive behavior. So they can go read the book.
Actually, I want to remind all of you who have your cell phones, you are inspired, if you hear something quotable, as I already heard multiple quotable things, tweet it out. The hashtag, which I just lost, is hashtag Pan-African Women Forum. Also, hashtag PAW 2019. So just join us and spread the message, making ourselves visible. Let's turn our attention to Chinwe, because a lot of your work outside of your career at City talks about the experience of being an immigrant woman of African descent. And I want you to speak a little bit about your journey to becoming the first chief anti-bribery officer at City. So you make sure they don't break the law, basically. You keep people in line.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about that journey, but also how that journey was unique, coming from the immigrant experience.
Absolutely. So how do you be the first to hold a title
Yes.
at a bank that's been around for 200 years and has over 200,000 employees? So I think the way it started for me, and I mentioned earlier, was I started out as a lawyer. But I think life is really not about having all the answers. Life is about asking the right questions. So some of the questions that I asked myself at the point where I really define as a turning point in my career is, what are the things I love? What are the things I would do without getting paid? And how can I start working on those? How can I start spending time in those areas? And so I was at Goldman Sachs at the time. I graduated from Harvard Law School. I worked as a corporate associate at a large law firm. And at the time at Goldman, I'd been in a couple of roles that were challenging and interesting. Goldman's a phenomenal bank, and I have a lot of relationships still there. But I was working at the time on audits and inquiries. I was handling their non-routine inquiries that had to do with traders that may be involved in insider trading, or where regulators thought they were involved in insider trading, and we had to build a case as to why they were not. And I enjoyed aspects of it, but I didn't love it. And I told my managers, I was very friendly with everyone. But when I sat down and I started asking those questions, I realized anti-bribery was one of those areas where I was spending a lot of time reading about it, talking about it. I was very interested in, again, changing the narrative. I grew up in Nigeria. We moved to the US when I was 17. And so if you know anything about Nigeria, aside from our beautiful culture and phenomenal food and traditions, there is this thing called bribery as a form of corruption that tends to be one of the problems we face as a society. So the question I asked myself was, how can I be a part of the solution for Africa? How can I be a part of the solution for Nigeria? And how can I, sitting in a bank in the United States with my training and with my experience, work experience, how can I bring those together? And so I started talking to mentors about it. I said, I'm kind of interested in this, I think I can add value. And it didn't happen right away. So I always caution people that a lot of times we look for instant results, and it really doesn't work that way. So what I started doing was continued to read about it, started to talk to mentors, and started to look for opportunities. I didn't get to do it right away at Goldman, actually, for personal reasons. We relocated to Minneapolis, and then when Goldman hired me back, another long story, I then had an opportunity to do anti-bribery after a couple of years of being back from Minneapolis. And then Citigroup called with an opportunity, and I did not want to go. I had just had a baby about a year ago. I remember the recruiter called me, and we are all women here, right? Okay. I was sitting in the pumping room at Goldman. I was rinsing off my accessories because my son was still under 1 and I was still breastfeeding. And if you're a mom who's ever nursed while you're in a corporate role, you know the pressures of that. Making time between your meetings to try to pump. You want to make sure that you don't go too long between the pumping sessions, etc. And so that's where I was. And when I got that call, I was not ready for change. And that's why I think this theme of changing the narrative is so important. It's so important to embrace change. And so what I did after arguing with her, but then knowing that even though you don't know all the answers, that you can figure out whatever comes in front of you. Yeah. Because you have that passion, because you have the enthusiasm, because you have the preparation. So I've been doing anti-bribery work. I taught it at a law school. I've been doing it at Goldman. I really was ready. It really was illogical. So first of all, don't believe everything your mind tells you. Yes. So I really was convinced that I wasn't ready, but now in retrospect, of course I was. Yes. But it took a mentor to see that, and it took him giving me great advice for me to actually take that leap.
I just know that there were people in this audience that needed to hear that story, but also I think it's fascinating that your mentor was a man, because I think sometimes in the business world, I think men who raise their hand before they even know. And sometimes as women, we want to make sure, we want to make sure, let me hit my checklist, I can do this, I can do this, I want to make sure I'm ready, so when I show up, I deliver, nobody's going to be disappointed, and then sir, I'm not finished telling you what the job is. No, I got it. And I think that's actually sometimes the value of having some male mentors as well to give you that little kick. You're ready. So I know some of you guys have been to hear that, so thank you so much. Sophie, I wanted to talk a little, I have a two-part question for you, but first I wanted to begin with your journey to just how you arrived at where you are at Morgan Stanley.
Wow, so to be honest, it starts very, very early on with a woman called Eileen Charabina. My grandmother was a housemaid in Rhodesia at the time. So I was born on the cusp of independence. What I learned from that woman is something about dignity, something about having big dreams. She raised her 3 children on her own. And her 3 children went on to have their own careers, 3 young women. And so I learned something about the fact that it doesn't matter what the legislation is saying about whether you're entitled to vote or not. It doesn't matter whether or not society is telling you about whether your blackness is an issue or not. She had big dreams for herself and she had big dreams for her children. And so from that woman, I've carried a backpack full of dreams. Mm-hmm. And so this idea of me being born in Zimbabwe or not being from a particularly affluent background has never really been the issue for me. I've always just thought, take a leap and see what happens. Mm-hmm. So I'm also a scholarship baby, I got my first scholarship to study in Canada when I was 16 years old. And I then was sort of embraced by a fantastic community in Canada who saw something special in me. And when Zimbabwe's economy started to collapse, they went to Michigan, University of Michigan called Lake State, and had a conversation with the board of governors about this young woman from this country who had been in the school for a year. And so would they consider awarding me some sort of a scholarship so that I could have an opportunity to make life work. Wow. Okay. So I know something not only about a backpack full of dreams and something about dignity and pursuing your dreams, but that actually the world is full of perfect strangers who do good things. Yes. And so when I hear the stories about the Donald Trumps of this world, and the narrative that our children are having to listen to about their worth in life, you know, I think it's such a shame that I happen to be a beneficiary of some very good people in small towns in this country who thought that it was worth going to have a conversation on my behalf without my family asking, right? I then started off my career very much similarly in private practice. I'm a corporate finance lawyer, data and equity capital markets and public M&A. Worked at a fabulous firm called Baker & McKenzie in London. I studied in Oxford, I was in Michigan, I've lived in different parts of the States and whatnot. But the thing is, life has been improvisation, right? At Baker & McKenzie, what changed my life was, even though I was the only black person in my intake, and even though you always feel like, you know, you're so lonely, and maybe people don't see you, or if they see you, they kind of look past you. Again, I had some really fantastic, what we now call in our world, right, allies. You know, people who took an interest, right? Or people who I made take an interest. And I'll give you a story about one day opening the Financial Times, seeing that the Body Shop was about to be acquired by L'Oreal. I knew who the relationship partner was for the Body Shop. I used to get into the office by 6:30 in the morning. I was a young associate, just 1 year qualified. I sent an email saying, "Dear Bernd, I know you don't know me, but I know you're the relationship partner for the Body Shop. I'm reading about a possible takeover. If you can please let me be on the transaction, I'll be so happy." Wow. He called me right away and he said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm in the office." And he said, "Okay, I'm on my way to the Body Shop now. Wear the right shoes." Okay? And let's go. That changed my life professionally, because I was on a transaction that I had no business being on. I was not qualified to be on the transaction because I'm only 1 year qualified. And the corporate managing partner took me to the Body Shop to meet Anita Roddick, who founded the Body Shop.
Oh my goodness.
And who was sitting with her general counsel, a lady called Susie Fluke. Now let me tell you how this changed. I worked my butt off on that transaction, right? But let me tell you in what ways I was working my butt off. Everybody who I worked with, I chose that I would always make it an experience. In everything that you do as a professional, people remember how you make them. As a young black woman trying to build a career. And she insisted on me being on the books. And guess what? The partners couldn't ignore me now, because the client was asking for it. Okay? So one piece of advice that I would give is, you know, sometimes you're working in an environment where you feel invisible and it's not a meritocracy. Okay, guys? We don't live in utopia. Yeah? So you've got to find other external forces that can have a bearing on your progression in your career. And for me, the client made a fundamental difference. And then after that transaction, Susie Fluke put me forward for an award, an industry award, Young Lawyer of the Year.
Wow.
And I was shortlisted. That changed my life again, because guess who saw that article in the Lawyer? Buckingham Palace. Okay? Random, right? I'm minding my business, I'm working hard, I'm the granddaughter of a housemaid. Okay? Buckingham Palace was looking for someone to serve on Prince Harry's board to help him to build a charity in Africa called Central. They needed someone of African heritage. I was a bit suspicious when I got the phone call. No, actually, I said, "You can call me later because I'm busy right now." And I got the phone there and I went to Buckingham Palace and I got interviewed and I was appointed to the board.
Oh my God.
Now, let me tell you what's important about that appointment. Of course, fabulous. You get to go to all these fancy things. But I met the chairman of IBM Europe. I was serving on the board, sitting alongside with an equal voice as Larry Hurst, chairman IBM Europe. Okay? Several other board members who were white male in their 60s and 70s. Guess what that did for me? Right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is, The small stuff matters, and you've got to improvise. On that board was a lady called Jane Ann Gardia, who knew Richard Branson, and you know Richard Branson, the Virgin Company. They were trying to launch a challenger bank in the UK. I was having a fabulous life at Baker McKenzie. I was a star performer, billables, all this was working for me. Richard Branson wanted to launch a challenger bank in the UK. And he asked Jane Ann Gardia, the woman I was serving on the board with, to be his CEO. Jane Ann Gardia asked me if I would come and be part of the deal team to launch a challenger bank in the UK. Wow. Okay? I was doing my work helping Prince Harry set up a charity for children who suffer from HIV and AIDS in Africa, my continent, my people, and I met these people who have helped me to transform my career.
Okay, so I'll share the story of Seek and then I'll share some pivotal moments in there. But the story of Seek, I say, starts with a little girl in Ghana, you know. Watching television and seeing all these amazing places that she wanted to be, that she could only visit in her imagination. Seeing things like space exploration, following that curiosity, becoming a deep space scientist, and then now wanting to create through virtual reality the ability to put other people at the places of their dreams, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's at a concert, whatever, and wherever they want to be, being able to travel there no matter where they are on the globe. That is basically what I do at Seek, as the founder of Seek Virtual Reality. But there were some key moments and key decisions that I took in life that allowed me to be able to do this. And one was, even though I was born in Syracuse, New York, we returned to Ghana when I was young. At 16, I decided to come back by myself. It was very uncomfortable, but I always say that where your comfort zone ends is really where life begins. Where your comfort zone ends is where life begins. So the first decision was coming back to the US at 16 on my own and trying to figure it out. I came with some great advice. One of the things that my dad, I remember him saying to me, was that in life, there are a lot of problems, and in the final analysis, we will all be remembered for the problems that we solve and the problems that we create. So find some really good problems to solve.
Yes.
And so, you know, in becoming an engineer, I've always focused on, no matter what organization I'm at, what are some problems that need to be solved? And in the case of Boeing, at Digital Cinema, they needed to be able to solve how to deliver content for the movie studios, Lucasfilms, and so on and so forth. So I spent every waking hour coming up with the technology on my own time, which then they decided to acquire. So, you know, in following the idea of, you know, finding those good problems in life to solve, that, you know, truly helped. And I speak about following my imagination a lot. And the one thing that I learned from the process of not knowing how or where things are going to end up, but what I know for sure is that in life is simply what we imagine it to be. So if you can dream it, if you can imagine it, if you can see it, if you can create that vision of possibility, then you can achieve it. Because that's been, you know, what my life is and how I really got here, just putting one foot in front of the other.
So if you could figure out how to apply that to something that somebody really wants to pay for.
Yeah.
People will pay when you solve their problems.
Yes.
You know? So I want to pose that same question to you.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I was listening like, maybe I could say, oh, she said that. But what I will add is what she said. And I think that you have to understand that it is business. She said it's not making money, it's a hobby. You have to figure out how to monetize your idea. It could be the greatest idea, but it may not be a great business idea. So that's one thing. I think you have to save and prepare. So you have the funds to be able to run your business or at least start your business, because while there are more and more pitch competitions out there, they're not always giving the money to people who look like us. And so you can't bank on the idea that you're going to get money. You're going to have to be very strategic about how you fund your dream, how you fund your passion. I will add that you're going to work harder in your business than you've ever worked a day in your life for someone else. It becomes your life. Like, I am African ancestry. I'm trying to create my own, get back to my own identity that I had, but I am African ancestry. And I often talk with my friend Sandy over there about passion, and people say, oh, you're so passionate about what you do, and I was listening to you say that you have to be passionate, and I think I'm not really that passionate, I'm a good marketer, but it makes sense. You're right, Sandy, I am passionate about it, because there's no other way you will work that hard every day for something that you're not passionate about. So, but I found a way to monetize the product that I'm offering so that I can then really have a business.
So you're working that hard, you're not getting paid. That's just not.
Yeah. I mean, well, you're going to work hard and not get paid
In the beginning.
The other thing I would add is use your network. So she talked about how you don't have to have everything just get started. Chances are you know somebody who has what you need. You've been to school with somebody who has what you need. You live next door to somebody. You've worked with somebody. You see them, whatever it is, you party with somebody. You go to a party, find out what people do. If you're an entrepreneur, you might need them. So that your network is critically important to your success. You are not going to be able to do it alone.
Self-care. I want to talk about financial self-care. What does that mean to you? Conversations that we don't often have when we get women in a room together about how you safeguard your financial future and what taking care of yourself financially means. So let's start with Chinwe. Let's start with you, and then we'll bring it around.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, I think this is one of those areas where we don't often talk about, and I think, for me, one of the things I will say is, ignorance is not bliss. So ignorance about your finances, ignorance about where your money is, where it comes from, where it goes, I think is not bliss. So I think everything starts with awareness of where you are. And just being realistic, whatever it is. And I think sometimes we're scared to find out how bad it is, or we're scared of the reality. But I think it's important that you are where you are. So embrace the reality, and then set goals. Figure out where you want to go and start working your way backwards. Get advice, get expert advice. So not everyone, there are people who are talented in particular areas, and some people are talented around finances. So get advice. There is cheap advice. You get the entire gamut, so figure out what works best for you. And then, like with everything else, you want to spend time on it. Some of my friends have something they call Financial Fridays, and that's that every Friday they have to do something that has to do with their finances. So sitting down and focusing on whether it's paying bills or figuring out what the next step is, and whether investing is the next step. So I do think that it's very important, just as in any other of the, I would say there are some key areas of life, and that's one of the key ones that you absolutely have to be knowledgeable, and you absolutely have to focus on, and you have to continue to make progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
What I would say is saving is not enough. You have to invest. When I was in the military, we had two groups. There were a group of guys that were investing in Amazon and all these other companies. And I wish somebody had told me then.
I would say, what year was that?
I was in the military back in 1990. So,
I wish.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I was focused on saving, and the multiplier effect that they had with their, with their money. Today, all of them are multi millionaires, and today with crowdfunding, and you don't have to invest a lot of money, but rather than just saving everything, find a way, do your research, and find really good projects that resonate with you to invest in.
Yes, that's a great point. And also find someone that is just passionate about investing, because I find that people who love investing, they'll talk to you.
Like they will actually give you tips and advice on what to read, and so you're knowledgeable about that. So yeah, let's hear Sophie. What would you say?
What would I say? I'd say pay yourself first. I'd say start small. You know, modest sums, especially when you're younger. Even that 100, the 200, or whatever, per month. Start small. It doesn't have to be incredible, but do something that means you're paying yourself first, because you gotta put your oxygen mask on first, right? And then stay involved. There's some people who outsource financials to husbands and partners and so on. I think it's fine if that's the lead, but stay involved.
Yes.
And the other thing that I'm so curious about asking the women on the panel, maybe in the audience, is how do you do financial planning with your partners? Those of you who are not married, those of you who are married, at what point do you commingle? And
That's such a really good,
I think it's a
because some people keep it separate forever.
I've got sort of millennials in my family now, and it's just this conversation about, what makes sense. So I think understanding how you want to manage your finances and the commingling aspects and the prenups and post-nups and, is it all right to have a prenup, or are you planning for the end? So for me, the contractual side of the coming together of relationships is a big thing we don't talk about, particularly in our communities, which I think you should.
Thank you. That's a thing. I don't have the answer, but the thing is, finances aren't necessarily sexy. So even when you're dating, and you're moving towards marriage, wouldn't it just you sit at dinner and say, so how much? Women have this conversation, but there's something important, because how many people divorce over money issues? So.
What are some of the visions that you see for Africa in the next 40 years? Thank you.
Did you guys have some?
Can I address that? Yeah. I think the narrative also, we were just talking about the fact that the news that is reported, everything, because we don't control the narrative, a lot of what is reported on Africa is all the negative stuff that's happening. And how many of you here grew up in Africa?
Wow.
Thank you. We went to universities, we went to schools. There are a lot of positive things that are happening, but that doesn't get reported. In Ghana, Microsoft just set up a $100 million center in Kenya. There are all these innovations, there are things that are happening. Most of you in here probably had no idea of the patents that I created. Go to the US Patent and Trademark Office, put my name in there, you will see that I'm the sole inventor of the digital streaming patent for satellite communications. And I'm not by myself. There are many other great things that are happening that does not get covered. Yes, there are a lot of bad things that are happening, but there are also a lot of good things. And I think that we have to be able to balance the two. So my vision for Africa, my vision for the way we see Africa is a very holistic view, where you don't have a high-ranking person from Netflix who is surprised that people in Africa are watching movies in English. I am Africa, you are Africa, all of us here. This is what Africa looks like. This is what Africa looks like. So that is the vision, because if we can see it, then we can be it. So having that holistic view of Africa, that is what I see for the future, because we have brilliant minds, we have all this stuff. I went to school in Ghana. That's my vision.
I think you posed a very important question. So for me, sitting where I sit, and I guess with my sister lawyer here, there's something about governance, right? Good governance, and creating environments where even we feel confident to return home, to invest, and understand that we can enforce our rights, right? Should things not work. So there's a big piece for me with regards to legal certainty, corporate governance, and and leadership, right, of good quality. We've suffered a significant brain drain right the way through. And so how do we ensure that the talent returns? I don't necessarily believe that you have to have these boots on the ground, but there's something about us, investing capital back in our own continent and creating networks that are effective in terms of, equalizing the balance of power on the continent, because the Chinese positioning, etc., is operating. So I am concerned, and I really wish. I think governance is one of the critical matters we need to address.
Governance, and then also you mentioned brain drain. Do you think that's really one of the larger issues facing?
Yes. How do you attract the talent
Back.
And it boils down to the narrative too, because if you think it's bad, right now there are a lot of companies that I'm working with, like Microsoft and so on, that are sending people to Africa. But if people don't know that a lot has changed, then they're not going to return, So that's basically, I saw a thing on a big part of China was built by the Chinese in the diaspora, right? But a lot of people are not going to invest back home if all the stories and everything that they see are of all the negative things that are happening. So the narrative is very important. It's also even important in exposing the corruption and changing, the leadership. So.
And also the Face2Face website also curates the positive stories that are happening. So check that out. And let's take that.
Around Africa recently, from December to March, called Reclaiming Our Roots. We wanted to understand our roots because of the narrative of what people are saying about Africa, and of course, we're African American. We don't know exactly where we're from. I didn't take the test. I'm not gonna lie, because I didn't want to give my DNA over. A little worried about that, but I'm glad to know, and I want to meet you. But just when we were over there, the number one question, we interviewed women that's going to come out soon, extraordinary women all across Africa. But a lot of the men and women, they ask, why do we keep investing into a country that don't belong to us? And you said something so profound that we need to go back home. Yes, we're doing so many great things here, but we need to go back home and invest into the continent, because the narrative that they're portraying that Africa is not great, but it is. It has so many resources there that everybody wants. Africa does not want anything from anyone. Everybody needs everything from Africa. Also, we see a movement, not from us, but the Chinese is moving in. The Persians is moving in. So it is time. It's no greater time than now for us to move in, to take over, because they know that if Africa backs up their resources to their dollar, it will become the great continent that it already is. So we need to go back, and we're doing great things, but we all need to go back and invest.
Action, right? We have to be able to, when we come together like this, it should be an imperative to be able to set actionable steps. What is the one thing that we're going to do? And it could be as simple as, I'm going to look for a positive story and post it to my Facebook page or to my social media. It doesn't cost you anything, but it's action. It's something that's actionable. And it starts that small and then just grows. But I think over and over and over again, a lot of times we just talk, and then everybody goes back, and then we come back together and it's talk again. So press. Yeah, basically.
There's something about we need to exist as a critical mass in places where decisions are being made. Okay? And so, you've got your city, your Goldman, your Morgan Stanley, etc. Our biggest problem is, when we're educating our children and we're sending our kids to these fine institutions, what internships are they doing, right? Where are they getting jobs? Who is coaching them, right? There's no reason why we're sitting in this room with quite a lot of power, I suspect, in this audience, but we're not electing to sit on the board of directors of a Fortune 500 company. We're not doing that as Black people. And yet you could, right? So there's something about the fact that we've gone from these conventional career paths where, you know, I don't know, somebody has told us maybe that's the way you go about doing things, but we're not existing in a critical mass in decision-making rooms that really, really matter. And we need to, A, do it for ourselves, but B, really invest in the future talent, the future leaders, the rising talent, and inform them about these other options of where you could be.
So are you saying seeing more talent of color in the C-suite, in these decision-making rooms, in these Fortune 500?
Yes, because what happens is we drop off, guys. We drop off in phenomenal numbers. So I don't know the statistics of the US, but in the UK it's something like 23% of the undergraduate or graduating population are Black, Asian, or minority, I think. By the time you get to the C-suite, it's something like 4%.
But I just put that, is that
Because it was
that?
No, but this is my thing, is what are we doing to intervene and hold on to more people?
Okay, yes.
Because we're just not translating from middle management into the C-suite and into the boardroom where a, you know, Anglo-American or an HP or a city is making a decision about whether or not and how to invest in a Rwanda or a Mozambique or a Zimbabwe.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
We're not in the places where decisions are being made because we're either being disqualified or we lose the will to continue.
Wow.
Whatever it was called before, nobody would have predicted that it would be the global force that it is today, or have the impact where they put in satellites to put Wi-Fi over all of Africa. So it again comes back to supporting the innovative companies, because when they grow up, they're going to be the ones that are going to be in the position to then, sponsor all these philanthropic activities and, all these things that are going on. So it goes back to supporting the innovators early on, and then the cycle, just starts.
I'm just thinking about legacy and the legacy that maybe you were hoping to leave for others to build on, which you've done today. But final thoughts, and anyone can begin.
Actually, I'll share something that, I came, when I was coming at 16, this was one of the last things that, my dad said to me. My dad has since passed, but he said that as you go on your journey, my hope for you is that you will always see our world with that sense of wonder, those perfect strangers that help, that sense of wonder. And my dream for you is that you'll make magic wherever you point your focus. Whatever you put your mind to, you can truly achieve. And that's the same thing that I have to leave with everyone, is the same hope of continuing to see our world with that sense of wonder, that it's possible, and making magic wherever you point your focus.
I think a lot has been said. There's been so much, I think, beautiful messages from here and even from all of you. I think one of the things I would just say, when I think of the word legacy, I really think about it not something you leave behind. I think about legacy as something you live. So I think about what is it I want to live, and being from a place of intention. And so the one thing I would say is, a lot of times people wonder, what's that one secret ingredient? What's that one success tip? But I really think if we embrace growth and we embrace the fact that it's an ongoing journey. My middle name is Ijoma, which, as you guys know, it really means journey, beautiful journey. And so I really believe in the journey, and I think we should all embrace the journey. Different levels of success require different mindsets, different skill sets. So just always being open to growing, always being open to evolving, always being open to learning. Never having a fixed mindset, never go into a situation saying, I am this way or this is this way. Just be open to learning more and being able to contribute and finding the answers you need in the moments that you find yourself.
What I'd like to leave you with is that we're more than 400 years. This year, we're all commemorating the first documented arrival of an enslaved African here to the United States. But our history didn't start 400 years ago. And 400 plus years ago, we were all in the same place. It's just that some of us have ended up here, some of us have ended up in the Caribbean, some of us have ended up in different parts of the continent. So we are living part of a legacy that extends back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And we have a responsibility to extend that legacy in a way that is worthy of the people who came before us. And my part in that is just one small tool that allows us to feel better about who we are and love ourselves.
Well, I think we've heard a lot about agency. So for me, it's the idea that every single one of us has the capacity to do something to catapult us forward.
Yes.
Right? And so when we're talking about narrative, when we're talking about legacy, I think it's just to remember that the power of positive thinking and our own belief in our capacity as Black people is probably the most important thing, right? And nobody can take that away from you. Nobody can take, your imagination and your sense of what you can achieve away from you. You don't have to pay for that. Okay? So let's teach our children, right, to be positive and powerful thinkers and to have a growth mindset, right? Because it's through them and through our own agency that we can do better as a people. I'm not going to be in another meeting or another audience where we're complaining about the decisions that white people are making about our country. Okay? My question to you is, what are you doing about it?
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about so many things, mostly gratitude for your honesty, for your endurance. You guys all arrived at a place in your career, in your life path, where you had a choice. You could have stayed here or you could have jumped, and you all jumped, and we're all better for it. Mm-hmm. And we're so grateful for your wisdom. And we are all someone's ancestors. Mm-hmm. Our life path and our decisions are going to impact people we will never meet. And we all have a backpack of dreams that we can give someone else. So I'm so grateful that you shared your story in a way that has ignited the fire in our audience, even in myself, because the world needs us at our best, and the diaspora needs us at our